How do you say goodbye to someone who has left such an indelible impact upon your life and how you live it? The news was unexpected. There's no way to prepare for this loss. Even when you know that outcome is possible, it comes too soon, and no way to get past the anguish except to go through it. I first met Master Ting in 1989, over 34 years ago. He was first a teacher, then a mentor and counselor, and became a dear friend. I dealt with my sorrow by reading his book. It is not, it is. As I read, it was like hearing his voice again. The reading of it kindled memories of the many hours where he dictated his thoughts, and I took notes. I remember that one of the first things that made a huge impression upon me was the 5 virtues. He was a role model for each of his attributes. He exuded confidence, was a presence he had, of quiet self-assurance that made us comfortable. It gendered trust and faith and the knowledge he had to share as a teacher, and fueled our desire to learn. I believe that as he taught us the deeper levels of Tai Chi, we encountered our own strengths and weaknesses and had the opportunity to grow confidence within ourselves. We are the beneficiaries of his sincere, wholehearted commitment and passing on the internal depth contained in the art of Tai Chi. He broke with the tradition of only passing on the hidden secrets to a select chosen few. He loved the art so much that he wanted to see it preserved with all its integrity. To that end, he freely shared what he could to all those who would come to him with their own sincere desire to learn. Modesty. He was devoid of any vanity or ego. Even though he possessed the use of great power, he did not flaunt it. But there were times when we would see him quickly send a student to the floor. We tried to test him. He persevered through many of his life's ups and downs. Growing up in communist China, and the Cultural Revolution was oppressive, at great risk to his family, but with their blessing. He escaped the constraints placed upon him by coming to America to gain the freedom of higher education denied him in China. Already in his 30s and not yet fluent in English, he succeeded in forging a new life. I can only imagine the sacrifice, courage, and determination that path took. Along with perseverance comes patience. We were the beneficiaries of his infinite patience. Over the years, he repeated lessons again and again and again, without any signs of frustration or admonishment. I think he always made his students comfortable the way they were, understanding that each individual learned in different ways with varying aptitudes and abilities. In that regard, he encouraged and welcomed questions from his students. No question was too simple or too complex. Questions helped to reveal what a student did or didn't understand. And I heard him say so many times that questions gave him the opportunity to form an answer or challenged him to explain the concept in another way. To him, Tai Chi was more than simply doing a form and movements. His passion was to get his students to experience the internal depth of feeling in Tai Chi, to discover what he called the invisibles. You have no idea at the time and effort he dedicated to trying every which way to figure out how to describe and demonstrate concepts and sensations that could not be seen, only felt. Hence, many of his famous toys he would use to help us experience an internal feeling. His greatest reward was seeing a student's face light up as they finally realized a Tai Chi moment, as we, his students, fondly called those special experiences. He was the consummate teacher. More than anything else, he wanted us to understand.
AUX mode.
It is the key to improvement and growth. Those of us who have been with Master Ting for a long time have undoubtedly heard many times over that it was not enough to know the hows, more importantly, the whys. He endeavored always to try and teach us the reasons why, so that someday we could figure it out for ourselves. That day has come. He left us a legacy that we are challenged now to preserve, to nurture and develop the treasures hidden in plain view, as he refers to them in his book. He did his best to plant those treasures within each of us. What are your most cherished treasures? I have two. The first is balance. Not just physical balance, but balance in everything. I have learned that it is an immutable law of the universe, lesson of the Tai Chi symbol. All interactions must seek an equilibrium to succeed and prosper. Until I studied with Master Ting, I did not realize the scope of how everything is so intricately interconnected in an infinite web of relationships. In truth, I cannot say that I always succeed, but the idea of joining in the cosmic dance of balance is truly captivating. The second, and possibly the hardest to maintain, is awareness. Not just the simple awarenesses, but the deep, true awareness. The complexity of the culture we live in is incredibly distracting. It takes discipline and desire to allow that sense of a calm mind, a relaxed body, and quiet heart required to open the door to true awareness. Maybe one of the most valuable keys Master Ting has imparted to us. It is something that can't be forced. We need to create the conditions within ourselves that allow awareness to blossom spontaneously. He wrote in his book, awareness will lead us to the magnitude of the spirit. That passage took my breath away. In the next sentence, he writes, in the classics, there is a saying, so small there is no center, so large there is no edge. I heard him say this phrase many, many times, but as I read this passage this time, it suddenly hit me that this may be a clue to understanding the esoteric third level of the 3 levels and 9 steps. The third level is Kong, meaning hollow, Shu, meaning void, and lake. Hollow is associated with the mind and your spirit. To be hollow requires emptiness. A combination of mind that is perceptive but unattached, and a spirit that is sensitive yet uncomplicated. Is that the connection to so small there is no center? Next is void, which is associated with body and presence. Could that be the combination of relaxation of the posture and expansion of our sense of self, our presence, to fill a void so large there is no edge? Lastly, there is lane. Master Ting could not find a word in English that totally satisfied him, but settled on synergy to represent a blending of all the 9 steps into one ultimate experience of being. In essence, Jingong. I ponder these thoughts, and I am at a loss because I have missed my opportunity to discuss these things with Master Ting. Beyond being a Tai Chi teacher, Master Ting enjoyed the casual company of his students, very often sharing meals with us. He appreciated good conversation, He had an inquiring mind, a sharp wit, and a playful sense of humor, often obscured by a quiet demeanor. He was a man of diverse interests and talents besides Tai Chi. Many of you had the pleasure of watching a rousing professional soccer game and loved the game of soccer. In his youth, he was a star player on his school team. On a few Split Rock retreats, we discovered that he was a formidable team player. I can see images of professional players I've seen on the Olympic competitions, standing 6 feet away from the table and rocketing a lightning return. He could not be beat at our game he called 24. His skill at math computation was mind-blowing. Speaking of card games, we taught him the game of Pinochle and found out he was a proficient card counter. He knew the cards we all had in our hand, but what he held in his own hand and what was he playing on the day, I swear he had a photographic memory. We usually played guys against gals, and Lynn and I always lost it. I think many of you have had the pleasure of tasting Ting's wings. He had a reputation for his wings, but he was very talented in the kitchen. He could cook anything and it would taste absolutely fabulous. He loved to travel. Almost every year he would make extended trips to visit family in China and has extensively traveled to many parts of China, along the Yangtze River, Yunnan Mountain, Beijing and the Great Wall, Hong Kong and Taiwan. Some of you may have gone with him when he took a group of students to China and Japan, where they had a wonderful visit with his Tai Chi brother, Shu Yongbing, and his students. We visited Remy and Brigitte in France and Pierre in Greece, giving workshops in both of those countries, touring and seeing as much of each country as they could within need. He has been to Germany to visit an old friend, and while he would travel there, he went to Switzerland, Italy. He found a perfect traveling companion in Lily. And together they've been on many adventures across the globe. They've been on a Viking cruise in Europe, an Alaskan cruise, trips to the Caribbean, and countless places across the United States, including Hawaii and Canada. Some highlights included the Grand Canyon, Las Vegas, New Orleans, Quebec, and Vancouver. But their favorite place for many years was Sanibel, Florida, thanks to the generosity of Virginia. It's a bit surreal that Master Ting is no longer with us, because it feels like he still is. We had the gift of his presence and teaching for over 30 years. We are the beneficiaries of his love of the art. He has left us with a library of videos, of classes, workshops, and retreats, and the handouts that went with him. His life's work is culminated in 2 very thoughtfully written books. He did his best to leave us with all the knowledge and experience he possessed. Even though he is not physically with us, I for one still hear his voice in my heart and mind as I practice. So in that way, he is still here within every student who embodies those basic principles he tried so hard to plant within us. Now it is up to us to let them develop and to grow and to share.
Okay. Harleen has asked me to read her thoughts, and I'll read those and I'll speak a little bit about mine. Okay. So this is what Harleen has to say. My last private Zoom lesson with Master Ting was November 16th. There was no way to know that this would be the last time I would see him. I thank my lucky stars. Had this extended opportunity to bask, oh, I'm sorry. I had this extended opportunities to bask in his powerful and pure energy and express my deepest gratitude for his being our Master Ting. I thank him profusely for working so hard to achieve such a high level of practice in his youth. I thank him for all the efforts in teaching this sacred practice over so many years to so many people. His weekly classes and many private lessons, his books, DVDs, Sunday workshops, retreat, at Split Rock and other places, and so on. This was typical. I would visit with him after my private lessons. His inspiration was infectious. As I made these sort of comments to him, he remained so gracious, humble, and sweet. I also, as usual, bemoaned the fact that we were no longer able to enjoy Sunday lunch together after class, with all the incredibly delectable dishes that were prepared at the local Chinese restaurant. Here, the owner, chef, and waitstaff all honored him and brought out seasonal dishes not listed on the menu. A group of us, Dory, Bob, John, and some others, would chat with Master Ting and relax around the table each week. Also, during my last lesson with Master Ting in November, just 1 month before he passed, I felt extraordinarily lucky to share with him some of my recent experiences visiting China in October of 2023. I told him about my performing Wuji fan form in Shanghai at a conference in Shanghai University. I was giving a paper to the Department of Traditional Chinese Medicine on Western psychological practices and how these compared and contrasted traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM. Chinese people traditionally like to see foreigners practice Tai Chi. So I also performed fan form in Beijing in 2018 at another conference. Master Ting understood and was touched by my love of Wuji fan form and the entire Wuji Jinggong practice, as we all are. He laughed when I told him how I really startled people in the audience with snapping the fan. Anybody here has ever been a fan know what we're talking about, right? We will carry Master Ting in our hearts, minds, bodies, and souls forever. We honor him with our practices, sharing, and teaching. His memory truly is a blessing for all who knew him. With love and gratitude, Arlene. Okay, so Arlene is on Zoom now. Yeah. So I'll share my thoughts. And my first thought is that, yes, this is a memorial, but if anybody here knew Master Ting, he would not want you to be sad. He would want you to be happy. That was almost like his theme on life. Enjoy life. If you ever went out to eat with him, you knew, he enjoyed going out to eat. He enjoyed being with people. Lynn referenced that, students' faces would light up when they got it. His face would light up when you got it. He would like beam as soon as you got what he was trying to tell you. Those are the things to remember. Yeah. I hear his voice. I practice every day. I hear his voice. Usually saying, stupid, don't do it that way. I'm trying to tell you for years, don't do it that way. But yeah, he's still with us. But he wants us to remember him in a happy way. Because that's how he was. He was a happy person. Really. And actually, looking around here, it's a testament to him, really, by everybody showing up, to how much he was loved by his students. This man was an incredible martial artist. And many people didn't know how high his skill level was. Because he was so approachable. Anybody could talk to him. He would talk to you. He made you feel comfortable around him. He wasn't like a superstar, very aloof and, I don't want to talk to you. You're too far below me. No, contrary. You wanted to know anything, he would just start talking. Yeah, really. And that's the way to remember him, I think. You know, he had a sharp, quick wit. Yeah. Oh, well, little playing 24, it's a card game. I guess they play it in China, Shanghai, where you said, I forgot how we played it once. I never played it with him again. Because he made me feel so stupid. He was so fast. He put out the card, oh, that's it. I'm still counting on my fingers, trying to get, the numbers. Incredible, really, just incredible. Ping pong. I never even came, no, he was incredible, the ping pong. Yeah, but his wit, I remember one time we were walking out of the studio and my hair had already turned gray and his was jet black. I said to him, I don't get it. My hair is gray, your hair is, still black. He turned without not skipping a beat. He said, yes, but you still have hair. He was like that, quick-witted, self-effacing. It was just wonderful to be around him. It really, really was. And now I'm going to do an impression of Master. Okay. One or two of you, right? You know what I'm talking about. He would never say, oh, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it down. It was always very good, very good. Maybe one or two. Yeah. And of course, everybody goes, no. Yeah, it's so I know it's me, yeah. That's how he was. Really. So I think that about encapsulates what I have to say. In my memory, yeah, I just always think of the good thing, the smiling face. Yeah. If you go to the website to see the picture of him smiling, laughing, that's him. That's how I read it. Okay. Thank you. Good. Randy, you want to come up? Okay. We'll give you. You can't escape.
I'm trying.
Hi everybody, sorry for the French accent. Yeah, and if it's not funny, that directly, if it's too long, I wrote something, but I think my glasses. It's more I see inside me, less I see outside. Then my meeting with Master Ting. And we start with the Taoist tale. There was a teacher surnamed Ting. He had reached such level of kung fu that he can cut up a cow, without touching the arteries, the tendons, the bones of the animal. And this guy, he became one with his life. Yeah. His blade, the edge of his blade remained intact, moving in gaps of the joints. The blade remained intact. He was not cutting the cow, but it released its natural parts, In fact, he was like he was cutting through the void. I never met Ting the butcher, but I was so lucky to meet Ting the tiger. Then that start like that. There is visible, invisible stuff. But the invisible for me, I met Master Ting physically in America, but the connection, really, I didn't know where and when it was. To make short. Yeah, to make short. On a trip to China, I was visiting a very old mansion in Nanjing. And I was attracted by calligraphy carved in the stones and made on a single line. It was like a magnet. And then I decided to leave the place with a reproduction under my arm. Only the instruction was to put this stuff toward the west to promote the harmony. Then after I came back to France and I searched in internet and I find this guy. He had the complete system of Grandmaster Lou, and he was in New Jersey. Why in New Jersey? Well, a closer student in New Jersey. I thought maybe Nanjing, Shanghai, but what you are going to do here? Then I decided to come directly, and I meet Master Ting, and I offered him as a token of my motivation the calligraphic stuff. And it's funny because meanwhile I have the meaning of this calligraphy, and this calligraphy meant Lao Hu, tiger, like Kuo Biao. It's like it's a bit the same. It's a pantera from the mountain. Very impressive. Then it's funny the connection invisible. I met with him, and for the teaching, it was a translation art to art, body to body. It will be very long if I talk about all his esoteric philosophy, how he can explain the non-duality principle for Western country. For the Western, it's very hard to imagine that it is yin-yang. Always for us, it is yin and yang. Then it takes a long time to embody or to even to understand this principle of no two. We said no two? No. Non-duality. Okay. Non-duality. Then everybody remember the images, the toys. He was the master of the why. He was his back. Everybody remember his back. Very smooth, large, broad. He smiled. So smile. Everybody who met Master Ting remember a smile like that. So nice guy, so loyal, so humble also, and that's come to away his advice. Sortez-nous the feet, opening the choir, don't look down,
But I'm sure, I'm not sure, but maybe today he deviates from this principle. He was like a sentinel scanning the horizon. But today I think he may look down a little bit to see who is here, and also to say to us, don't be, like you said, don't be sad, but be happy or what happened. In fact, he was never. There is many complaining, comparing, criticizing, but we are also celebrating. Good, no? Yeah, good. Then I will finish with the it is not, it is, because he was a master of many students in the United States and students, teachers. He was the president of Wuji Jingong in Lineage in China, where he came with Lin in France. He was a kind of key, yeah, and in Greece, good, yeah. He was almost a god but for such quiet man like that, what a pedigree! He's so amazing. What can I say? Well, on my way, there was a before and an after Master Ting. And I remember also this sentence. Yeah, so small that there is no center, so big there are no edges. I think he reaches so high level of kung fu, he finally disappeared. Then, yeah, he's invisible now, but he's so visible inside me. Yeah. Then maybe to remind us this last deep advice about, we say in Chinese, ce bruit confond tout ce. The form is empty, and the inverse. Emptiness is form. Then it's a bit, the master also for me to explain the Taoist, the Taoism thought or philosophy. And it is a bit like we start with Ting the Butcher, this tale of Chuang-Tzu, that finally he reached a very strange efficiency, which consists to cutting through the void. Then what can I say? I say he transmitted me also to have this fasting of the will, to have this essence, to go through this essence of non-acting, this Wu way, or rather acting in non-acting. Always like, okay, let the motion appear, don't make it appear. Follow the momentum, flow with it. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it was. It explained me the Tao. It is like the spirit of the body. It is like this great void from where everything is gathered, and also it is the source of the action. Then thanks a lot, Lauscher, and I forget to talk about him, but it was, she's a bit, it's true, alone together now. She was his half, his eternal sunshine, the key of his balance, his resilience in front of this illness. Then it's true, we have to celebrate it, but it's easier said than done. Okay, then rest in natural with peace. We will meet again.
A lot of people may not know me. I was Master Ting's bad student. I'm the other Lynn in the class. This is Lynn Kemmler, and I am the bad student. And for some reason, the man married, and I have no idea why. I met him in 1991. And at the time, I was working for an attorney. Apologies to all the attorneys in the room. I thought it was going to kill this guy. So I was in looking at the Morristown leaflet, and it said Tai Chi, stress relieving. And I think to myself, well, that's better than first degree murder. And it's being taught by a Chinese guy. I said, how convenient. Why would you want to take Tai Chi from anybody else? But a Tai Chi guy, Chinese. So I signed up for this class. And at the time, I was in pretty good shape. I was running, I was lifting weights. I thought it was just tough. I got into the first class. I have never been so humbled by the human body. This man sat on an invisible chair for an hour. He had his hands out on an invisible table, and he didn't even look like he was sweating. I, on the other hand, was looking for some place to sit down. I was looking for some place to put my arms. And of course, Master Ting would say, okay, right arm up, and I have my left arm up. And he would say, 2 people in the room have their left hand up. And I'd be looking around and this went on for a while. I took, and as time went on and he was doing the movements, he would say, do you feel chi? And everybody around me was feeling chi. Everybody was feeling, I was feeling pain. I wasn't feeling chi. I must be Irish. This is not going well. And finally, I guess we were about 7 weeks into this. I had 1 more week, and I figured, okay, 1 more week of sitting on this damn chair, and I'm going to be out of it. And I went up to him at the end, and I said, I just need to ask you something. I said, do you hurt? He said, no. I said, does it ever stop hurting? He said, yeah. And I said, how? He said, patience. I'm like, oh, patience. That is my really weak point, patience. So I decided I'd sign for another 8 weeks because I was into the torture at this point. And I decided that I was going to stalk him. So I went from one class to the other class to the other class, because this idea of balance, at the time I was having problems with my ear. Many people know I'm deaf. And my right ear had popped itself off, and I was having some really problems with balance. I couldn't read, I couldn't walk straight. doctors were telling me veneers, they were telling me this, they were telling me that. And I read an article that said Tai Chi. It was in Emory, it was from Emory University. And they said, take Tai Chi, it's great for your balance, especially for elderly people. Now, not knowing what elderly people were at the time. I have since become well acquainted with some elderly people. I had, I took this class and I started taking it really seriously because I was losing my balance really seriously. And when I went, I had an ear operated on, I had all kinds of surgeries done on it. It never got fixed, which meant my balance was always going to be impaired. So when I started really stalking him, it was for a reason. It wasn't just because he was cute, and he was cute. It was because I really needed this. I really needed this to work for me. And boy, he was stubbornly, after he kept on saying, you can fix this, you can fix this. And he was right. You could fix this. I did fix it. And it was through Tai Chi. To this day, I give full credit to Tai Chi for me being able to function in a normal way, because my balance is still bad. If I had to walk a straight line for a cop, I am definitely going to jail. It doesn't matter if I've been drinking water all evening, I'm still going to jail because I can't walk straight. But he made me study it. He showed me how to stand and how to move. And in the process of doing this, I also learned other things. I learned patience. And I learned that the gentlest way to move is probably the best way. It doesn't take long movements, they're big movements. It's the tiny little movements that make a difference. And it really does. To this day, I still am Tai Chi in terms of what I do with my balance, the way I walk and the way I move. The things that he taught people over the years, are too, there's so many, they're just too lengthy to go through. He taught people who had bad backs. He taught people who had multiple sclerosis. He taught people who had Parkinson's. He went to hospitals and taught. And every time he could make a difference in somebody's life, it made a difference in his. When he introduced me to China, it wasn't through the Tai Chi, it was through telling me about his family and where he grew up in Shanghai. And a lot of people in his studio don't know, he comes from a very distinguished family in Shanghai. His family had 12 brothers and sisters. He is the third from the youngest. When he was 30 years old, he came over to the United States. But what you wouldn't know is that in order to get here into the United States, he had to talk to his family. His whole family got together and they had to approve him going over, because they knew that if he was going to apply for this visa to go to the United States, it was going to bring the Chinese government down on their family. And their family wasn't in good stead with the Chinese government to begin with, because he came from a very wealthy family. His father was a very big industrialist in China, very respected family. And when the communists came, they took the family money, they took the family house, they took the family business, they moved his whole family into a little tiny itty bitty house, 12 brothers and sisters, their children, their servants, everything. The family was highly, highly educated. His sisters are doctors, his brothers are engineers. I mean, he comes from a AAA personality family. And as nice as Master Ting is, his family was even nicer. You couldn't meet a nicer family than the Ting family in Shanghai. He came to the United States because he wanted to study. And because he wasn't a communist, they wouldn't let him study. He worked in a factory that was cotton fibers in the air. And he worked there 7 days a week for very little money and very little future. So when he said he wanted to go to China and the family agreed and sent him over, it was a big decision in his family. It wasn't just, hey, I'm going to this other country and I'm going to see what it's like and hang out for a while. This was a decision that was life-changing for him. I can't even imagine making that kind of a decision. He didn't speak any English when he came over. He couldn't get a job in a Chinese restaurant because he didn't speak Cantonese. He spoke Mandarin, he spoke Ningbo, he spoke Shanghaiese, smatterings of other dialects in China, but he didn't speak Cantonese, and that was most of the restaurants in San Francisco. So he got a job in an Italian restaurant, and that is how he started to learn English. Can I get you water? Can I take your plate? Can I do this for you? And I when he was telling me this, I was like, an Italian? He said, yeah. He says, I just smiled. The guy said I had a nice smile. And he said, yeah, it wasn't easy for him though. He lived with 5 guys in an attic up in right outside of Golden Gate Park. And because he was living in an attic with 5 other guys, trust me, he wanted to be outside. So after work, he would go down to Golden Gate Park and he would practice his Tai Chi. Because his Tai Chi was his only visible thread of connection at that point to his homeland. And he missed it so bad. He was so homesick. He missed his mom, he missed the brothers and sisters, he missed the food, he just missed everything. And he went down to the park and he would practice. Well, people started to observe him and noticed that this didn't look like Yang, it didn't look like Song, it didn't look like Wu, which was very popular, all of these in Golden Gate Park. His was a very different style. They had never seen this style, and they started to come up to him and ask him to teach. And that's how he started teaching in the United States. It wasn't for money. It wasn't for fame or glory. It was because students saw him and said, can you teach me that? And he said yes. And he didn't do it for money to begin with. This was all done because he wanted to spread Tai Chi, even from that first beginning when he got to the United States. This was his mission. This is what he wanted to do. And he was very good at it. He wasn't just a Tai Chi teacher. He was a master right from the beginning when he got to the United States. His Bagua teacher introduced him to Lu Shitang, who was his Tai Chi master, because he was so good at Bagua. And his Tai Chi master, it was illegal to learn Tai Chi. It was illegal to even practice martial arts in China at the time. His Tai Chi master, and he would practice in hidden places, in parks where he couldn't be found. And he would practice hours and hours, because sometimes the schools were closed. There was nothing to do. So he would spend the entire day learning and learning and learning from his master. And his master, one of the things about his master, he wasn't just into the movements, he was into the research behind the movements. Why do movements work this way? And why do you do the movements this way? Would it make a difference if you did it a little bit different? He was a very, very renowned researcher in Tai Chi and in the martial arts. And this is what he passed on to his closed-door student, who was Master Ting. When Master Ting came to the United States, he got a look at Americans. Okay, we're fast. We have no patience. We want to learn it extremely quickly, and then we want to go on to the next thing as fast as that. And he realized that the teachings that he taught, the way he taught in China, it wasn't going to work here. It just wasn't, because we're Americans. So he started teaching not just the basic movements, he taught the internals. And this was forbidden in China. His Tai Chi buddy, that is the other close storage student in this system, he does not teach that. He did not teach his students the internals. Master Ting believed if you didn't teach the internals, the things that he learned as a closed door student, you would not succeed in keeping this going as an art. This would not continue to go into the 21st century. It's centuries old, and he couldn't see it die. So when he sat down, he said, I'm going to teach everything I know, and I'm going to just hand it to them and let them run with it. And he did. His method of teaching was to give you everything you needed, and then you needed to figure out how to make it work in your own body. And many students in the middle of a class go, oh, why didn't you ever say that before? And he'd sit there and he'd laugh at you because he has said it 1,000 times. Your body was ready to accept it. That was his gift. He could take a class of students who were way advanced. And he could take a student who just came to that day and said, is this dim sum? He could take the class and he could teach everyone in it something that day in the workshop. Everyone would work out and would walk out of there and know something different because he could reach every single level. It was a talent I couldn't understand, but it was amazing to watch in a class. Really amazing. Like Lynn said, and Joe said, he was a funny person. And trust me when I say this, like I said, he married me. Yeah. The day that we got married, we had pulled a license like a couple of weeks before, and it was running out. There were 3 days left. And I had made arrangements to call up one of my friends who was a minister who could do this over the phone, and then we were just going to go on with our lives, okay? And my friends decided that no, just chuck it up to my friends. They were like, suck it up, Lynn, and do it the right way. So we got married at the studio, okay? I didn't invite my sister until the day before because I didn't want her to come down. I didn't want anybody to be there. I didn't want to make a big deal about this, and he didn't either. So there were about 10 friends there, and we're at the studio. And my friends are trying to talk him out of marrying me. I'm going, he's like, my friend Vince calls him the holy man to this day. And he was beaming, he was laughing, and he was joking. He's like, I'm gonna marry her anyway, and here I'm dressed. This is it. So that's what we did. We got married, we went to Cafe Gallery, had dinner, and he went back to the studio that night and taught. It's like, he was a master of being spontaneous. If we were on the road and we were traveling and things got screwed up and whatever, he'd be like, whatever. Next exit, find some place to stay. If we were supposed to be on the auto train with his family came to visit, and I made reservations to go down to Santa Fe. Okay, we were going to go to the auto train because I figured, okay, we'll leave the train from Washington. We go down to the auto train, and on the day or sitting there, and I'm like, this is really bad. What do I do now? I've got his family in the back of my car, and we have no place to go and no auto train to get on. And he says, let's go see Washington. I'm like, And back we went to Washington and spent the whole day there. But this was him. I mean, he wasn't just the serious Tai Chi teacher that you all came to know and love. He had a wicked sense of humor, and he loved to travel, and he loved food. Oh my God, and the man was a cook, and thank God, because I am so Irish, I do not cook. My mother was a horrible cook, I inherited that from her. Genuinely, he cooked, he would look in the refrigerator and he'd go, oh, there's a meal in there. I look in the refrigerator and I'd say, well, there's beer and there's some orange juice. What are you cooking? And sure enough, in a half an hour, he'd have dinner ready, and I don't know where it came from, but it was delicious. These were the things that made him the person that he was. But I also know, and the thing that's keeping me going right now is the fact that he wouldn't want us to be sad. He really wouldn't. I can't help it at times, but then I hear him sitting on my shoulder going, you have no respect. That was one of his, I swear I'm gonna have that on my gravestone when I die. It's gonna be, you have no respect. Because I would be sitting there and say something to him and he'd go, I have no respect. I had the utmost respect for my husband. I had the utmost respect for him as a Tai Chi teacher. And I have the utmost respect for him as a man. I've never seen anybody so talented, so brave, so when he was in the last year, he was having definite health problems. And I've never seen anybody not complain about anything. And not even complain because in the last year I was cooking. And oh my God, it was horrible. Like, you see Mrs. Doubtfire? Yeah. It was terrible. And for the first couple of times I was cooking, he would just hang over my shoulder like this. I was like, oh, would you just back up, please? You're making me nervous. And then I burn it. I finally got kind of the hang of cooking or whatever. He would eat anything I gave him. God bless him. He gave me anything I gave. And if I asked, I'd be like, oh, honey, you don't have to eat that. That's really bad. He'd say, oh, no, it's delicious. I'd be like, okay, you're on points now, you can dump it. He was easy to live with. You could never argue with him. He did push hands when he was talking to you. But you could never have an argument and win one with him. The only argument, honest to God, my sister and I, we were talking about it, and I said, the only bad argument I ever remember having with him was about dish towels. Dish towels. I mean, and it was, I was in the kitchen, I had a dish towel, I was drying my hands off, and he looked at me, he said, I don't like dish towels. I was like, really? This was news to me. I'm like, I've lived with you 30 years, you don't like dish towels? He says, no. He says, I prefer paper towels. So I start on the environment. You know, it's an environmental disaster. You can't use paper towels. That was the worst argument we had. We went back and forth, and it started getting like, and I'm like, am I going to divorce you over dish towels? Judge, he hates dish towels. He really, really wants paper towels in the house. And that was it. That was like the worst argument I've ever had with him. Otherwise, you could never find his center in an argument. And you would turn it like this right back on you and be like, and by the end of the argument, you were like, get that anymore. I'm just going to win and sulk now. He loved his students. He took his students over to China and had the best time over there, Neil. He told me about you guys traveling on a bus and down the street with a bunch of things that you got out of antique shop. And it was in the middle of the summer and you were dying. It was so hot.
Scared of my life. Because he pissed off some guy. There was a very nice plaque that I wanted. He talked the guy into selling it to him. But the guy had already sold it to somebody else, and he left to go get his money. When he came back, I had it. And the guy was really mad. You know, I'm watching my, old Chinese kung fu movies, and I figured he was running down the street to get 30 of his buddies. And that's slightly okay because I didn't have to. I was afraid of me. Long story short, we ended up going back to the hotel. A guy was on a bike. He had a wagon on the bike. He had my thing that I bought, and the two of us in that wagon. And he was pedaling back to the hotel with us.
He told me that story and I was dying because just the two of you running through the streets of Shanghai with these people. I was like, oh God, how does he get himself into this? One of the first times I went to Shanghai, and I walked around the afternoon and I had seen where I was staying in the city. I'm pretty good at directions. His sister, Shou Qing, and her husband were over at the house, and Shou Qing and Master Ting and I, so then we had to go to the pharmacy for something, and I know it was right down the street, right around the corner. And they start out in a completely different direction. So I followed them. I figured they know where to go. It's Shanghai. I'm a tourist. They start going and they're looking around and looking at them and like, follow them. They're looking around. Then I see them walk up to a police officer. They are totally lost. My husband, who could find a center in the middle of any person I know, couldn't find his way around the block. And I have to say, I'm so sorry, Gene, I think it's genetics, because Shoki was just as lost as he was. I was like, come on, I know where we're going. And I got us back to the pharmacy. By the time we got back to the house, Shochi's husband was ready to start calling the police because we were gone for an hour on what should have been 10 minutes. Man had no sense of direction, honest to God. I do hope he knows where to head. I'm pretty sure he does. I'm fairly sure he does. But the one thing that was steady in his life was you guys. You were his guiding star. He really loved his students. He lived for his students. He never wanted to retire because of his students. He couldn't, you know, he believed I should retire. I'm like, yeah, I can hear it. And then he'd be like, well, the next workshop is, and he was never going to retire. He was never going to go up and retire. He loved what he did. He loved sharing it. And one of the things he wanted to do, and he started with the studio, is he developed a teaching group that he taught. Teachers, he wouldn't give people a black belt. He didn't give people certifications. What he did was he took me to teacher's class, and over the years, he taught them just as his master taught him. He taught them all of the internals that he could get to them. He taught them how to carry themselves, how to live their lives. It wasn't just the Tai Chi, it was the whole universe that he created around himself. And it was one of his greatest missions in life was to pass this on to other students. And in the last month or so, when he knew that things weren't doing well for him, we had many, many talks about this. He wanted the system to continue, the Silver Tiger system. And to do this, he designated Remy as his closed-door student. He designated in Europe. He wants Remy to carry this on to his teachers and his students in Europe. He designated Joe Ebert here in the United States to carry on as a closed-door student and to help Remy in everything he does. He's designated Lynn as a closed-door student also, and she'll help here in the United States with what needs to be done. So that's going to be the hierarchy of Silver Tiger going forward. And we really do want to keep Silver Tiger going forward because that's the only thing he asked, was to keep spreading this, because he believed in it so deeply. It was his life. He lived Tai Chi. He didn't just teach it. He lived it. He really was. One of the things that I found amazing after he passed away was that I got letters and cards and phone calls from his doctors who said they loved meeting him. It was an honor to meet him. He was a gentleman. It was one of the greatest honors in their life to meet him. Normally, the only thing you get from a doctor at the end of something like this is a bill. Okay? Seriously. Okay. I'm picking on lawyers and doctors. But his doctors really did. They would call him, I would say that 5 of his major doctors gave him their private number. And I did promise not to put it on the New Jersey Turnpike. But they did, they gave him their private number. He impressed so many people with the fight that he took on with the cancer, that like I said, I've never seen a braver person in my life. And this is why I have asked for contributions to the Abrams Cancer Center. The doctors there, when he was diagnosed with cancer in 2013, he had a 10-centimeter tumor that was embedded in his aorta, and he was given 6 months to live. That was 2013. The man lived until 2023. So he gave us 10 years of his life, and in that 10 years, he really meant he wanted you to share this gift that he's given you. And that's all I'm asking you to do after this, is to just share, go out and share this. Go out and teach in his name. Go out and teach to be gentle, to be kind, to be funny, to love what you're doing, and to love the food and the air and the water and just everything that life gives you. Because it's short. You have everything in front of you except time. So take this time and go out and keep this going. Okay? I want to see you teach. I want to see you happy. I want to see you joyful, because that's what he was. You can cry, do it on your own, do it someplace else. But when you're doing it, remember that the one thing he wanted you to do was get over it. Okay? Just get over that, because that's not what life is about. Life is too short to be depressed and depressed about this. This is something he wouldn't want you to do. Okay? He wants you to love each other. He wants you to live. He lived his life to the nth degree. He never looked back and said, oh, I should have done this. Because he'd already done it. He went places, he saw people, he met people, he influenced people. And towards the end, as I said to him, I said, you will be remembered forever. You're in the Library of Congress with your books. Your videos will live on forever. I said, your students will pass this on generation to generation to generation. Because that's how you live in somebody. You really don't live in the grave. You don't live, you live in people's minds, you live in people's hearts. And he was one of these people that you could keep in your heart and look back and go, oh yeah, and smile about it. He was a gentle, sweet, kind person. And I talked too long. I really did. I really did want to see God, but I thought.
We will now, basically, if anyone else would like to come up and say a few words, some remembrances, please.
Well, that's Hard to follow.
Thanks.
This should be a hard act.
So I was on the flight down here, I was trying to figure out how to explain what my first experience was like with Master Ting. And the thought came to me as I was flying in the airplane. I haven't flown in a while, and I happen to be a private pilot. And I used to fly an antique airplane with wind and all that, and I was straight and level. And you're in this space, but you don't feel that space. You're not aware of your own speed. You might look down at the ground, but the perspective is kind of skewed, so you're not really aware of that space and your relationship to that space. You might see an airplane fly by, and then you have some feeling of speed and that three-dimensionality. And so I flew along like that for many years, and then one time I was flying and oh my gosh, this big bird flew right at me. Now my airplane's very slow and it's not very maneuverable. And here's this big airplane flying, a bird came flying at me, came into my space. And it was so agile and it changed. It just flew right down underneath me and past me in half a second. And in that half a second, my whole experience of dimension and understanding of my place in that dimension changed. It was like I felt this 3D effect that I've never felt before. With the speed of my speed all of a sudden became apparent, and the space all around me, and this bird that thankfully missed me. But then I had this added concept of this dimension I've never had before. That is what it was felt like when I first experienced Master Ting. It was like Tai Chi took on a whole different meaning. It was, much more than I had ever imagined and hoped. And he continued to expand that dimension. And not just for me, but as Lynn and everyone here has attested to every one of you, no matter what the level. And he was so dedicated to showing you that dimension, to allowing you to experience that in your body and to feel it, and when we touch each other to feel it and to understand that place of Wu-Ji, that fullness and emptiness. And I feel so blessed. I feel blessed to have ever even been in the same room as Master Ting. I mean, what a man. And that smile, that was the second thing that I experienced, was that smile. That was so unexpected. When I walked in the room and I floated, here's this gal from Texas, don't know anything about her. And I walked in the room, he turned around and smiled, and I was just, wow. I mean, how can you explain that smile? Just reaches inside of you, doesn't it? Just like his teaching. So I feel immensely blessed, and I know that all of us feel that way. And I was thinking a lot about the subtitle in his book, also on the flight here, that it is not, it is. And isn't it interesting that was brought up several times? And to me, I'm still mulling around what that means. I think sometimes we think of somebody's life and we reverse that. We think it is not, it didn't exist, they were born, it is, and then it is not. But Master Ting wrote on the front of his book, it is not, it is. And Master Ting taught us to go beyond form. Everything he taught us was beyond form, and even his physical form. It's the periphery, it's that awareness, it's not the focus, it's the both sides of it. It is not, but it so is. He so is. And I didn't know how I could walk in. I thought we were going to be in the room across the way. I didn't think I could walk in that room, because every time I flew here, he was going to be there. And I just didn't know how I could do that. So thank you for not having it in that room. It's like being sucker punched in the stomach. Uh, but then I realized that he is. He is in Nancy, he is in Donnie, he is in Lynn, he is in Lynn, he is in Joe. You know, he is in each and every one of us. And he'll continue. So every movement we make, every breath, and every time you come to a peaceful place, and certainly a happy place, Master Ting is there. He has not left us. He is. So thank you for letting me talk.
I'm sorry I missed the earlier speakers. I just wanted to pay my respects to Master Ting because, you know, I really think Master Ting was a great man because he really embodied those qualities, you know, like egolessness, you know, like one of the last times I spoke to him was about, I don't know, 6 or 9 months or 9 months, you know, when I called him to see if I could start up again with him. And he just greeted me so graciously. I've been away from his classes for a good number of years, but it's like he just was so welcoming and effusive. So that was Master Ting. You know, he had this, even though he had these amazing gifts and qualities, he still, you know, treated you with the utmost respect. And you know, that's what I always perceived about him, that his humbleness, his you know, like, yeah, I mean, of course I felt amazing when I did the film with him and I entered his studio, but it was this direct, you know, transmission of seeing me, of validating me, of treating you like a, you know, a person. So I know a lot of people said, you know, profound things, but to me, that's like a great gift for someone so rich in his craft to be, you know, so humble. So that's kind of what I'm saying.
Anybody else? I'm like,
Pardon my New Jersey accent. So I started training, back in 1985. My teacher, had started training under Mr. Ting in 97. And the esteem and the reverence that he spoke of and the fascination. Here's a guy who had been training in Chinese martial arts since 1975. And he was, and had trained directly under Chinese masters from China. But the way that he spoke of Master Ting was, it was astounding in the idea that he saw something that he had never seen with these other people. And he had asked me to take over the studio for him when he went into ministry work. And he said, make sure that you get up there with Master Ting and keep this stuff going, because he's got the real thing. He's got the stuff that we've been looking for all this time. So my friend Fred and I, we've both been with Ron since '85. We thought, okay, we're going to get together. We're going to get together every week, and we practice together. We're going to refine this. We didn't want to embarrass ourselves, and we didn't want to embarrass Ron. We wanted to impress Mr. Ting. So finally, we got up there like in 2005, and he was so gracious. But he lied, because he said, you have very good movements and you just missing foundation. I look back and like, oh man, I was so bad. It's terrible. But he was he would watch us and we would take these classes together and he would watch and he would notice when the look in your face would go from to this overflowing, and he would say, I give you too much, I'm like, no, I just have to process this a little bit. And whenever he would do the workshops, I would put it up on the whiteboard in my studio, and I would encourage everybody, as many people as we could get up, go up there, to attend these things, just to have the experience of training with him. And universally, everyone that came up there said, I can't believe how nice he is. He's this renowned master, but he's so approachable, he's so kind. And that really exemplified what he was, and he was never critical, although the loudest thing that I ever heard from him was when you would be doing something and he would just go. I didn't want to let him down but I told him that like I had every intention to keep what he's taught going, because it was so different from everything else I had done and everything else that I had seen, and wasn't anything. I said to him one time, because as he was being published in Tai Chi magazine, he said, you ruined all my reading material. And he looked at me, it's like, I looked in Tai Chi magazine and see all these people, holding the positions wrong. He said, yeah, sometimes you get maybe one, maybe two good articles in there. But he would get in there and he would just really show you. He said, why? And I said, well, how do you teach people? How do you tell them they're doing it wrong? We don't tell them they do wrong, we just say we do differently. Like, but they're violent, we do differently. Okay. But I tried my best to emulate those things, and I push on everybody, if you buy the books, buy the DVDs, follow them, listen to them. When COVID hit and we really didn't have a chance to meet very much, so I started just replaying the videos over and over and over again. And there's so much in there. And just like in the books, you read it the first time, you read it the second time, you find more, you read the third time, you find more. It's endless. It's just, there's so much knowledge in there. I remember one time we're at the house doing a class, and right when this book came out, and he said, like, what did you think? I said, well, I'm not finished all of it, but I really love that part of like, and you're telling the stories of you, like you training, like I really like to hear one of that. Glenn said, see, I told you, people want to hear about it. He's like, no, it's not about me, it's about the art. And but it was so profound in the things, the way that he was just so gifted with. I pray that I can get to be a fraction as good, not just as a practitioner, but conveying those ideas that are just mind blowing. And I'm really happy to hear that, like, try and keep this thing going, keep the silver tire going, because it's too precious to lose. And he truly was and is a treasure, and everyone that I've sent up to do his classes had the same things to say, that he was just, the absolute most kind and wonderful person, and just trying to live up to that, those huge shoes to fill. But we'll do the best we can.
No, thank you. Master Ting touched my life so many ways. Two in particular. One, we were in class, and he stopped and he said to us, which is the greater? And he had a fist and he had an opening. And we were in Tai Chi, and we were ready to kick butt. And so we said the fist. And he said, no. He said the opening. And he said, because you can give and receive at the same time with that hand. And that stayed with me. And I left my life open so that I can give and receive at the same time because of his words. The other was, we were in Shanghai. And he came to me one evening, he said, I want you to meet me in the morning, we're going somewhere. So I said, okay. So I met him, we went for a walk. We were walking, And we stopped in front of this building. And I started going across the street and he wouldn't go. He stopped. Jeff would not go. And I looked back, he had tears in his eyes. And I asked him what was wrong. And he had told me many of the stories then about what the communists had did to his family. And the building he stopped in front of was his father's factory. Yeah, it was his father's factory. And he had gone back to it. And it just, you could see the pain. And then we walked a little more down the street. And we stopped in front of this beautiful park. Beautiful, had a little stream going through it, just a beautiful park. And he said, this is where my home was. They took it from us. They took it from us. And now it's a park. And that has always impacted me, the kind of strength that he had, not just in Tai Chi, but what they did to him and his family. So I love the man. He was like a big brother to me. And I will always miss him.
I think I'm probably maybe the second student of Master Ting. I've known him for a long time. Joe introduced me to him. The first time, talk about being humble. The first time I was in the class was in the basement of one of his students in North Jersey. Going back, I think I had the notes I took for that was like 1989, and I've known him for that long. We began to learn Tai Chi. You know, we had studied Tai Chi from some very high level Tai Chi masters, but Joseph he's different. Skill level is just everything that you've said about him. Just it is so true. I've only seen him really angry once when we took that group trip to China, and we were going to a park and I called for some admissions, and one of the other students or travelers myself thought that there was a group payment for the admissions, and we went into the park, and maybe just a few minutes later, Master Ting was so excited. He was running up to me. There was a young attendant who was at admissions. She said, "What's the matter? You're going to get this woman fired. We didn't pay for the admissions." He calmed down so quickly, especially after he paid the admissions. But that was the only time that I've ever seen him angry. Just a man of such skill, such talent. He will be missed, but maybe we'll live on through us continuing with his art and his teaching. I know I will be always be teaching his teachings and sharing with him. There's choices.
I don't need that. I'm sure that's what Ting would say. I have a big mouth too, so that's okay. I'm Patty. I met Master Ting. I was trying to figure out the year, I think 2007, 2008, running a charity event at the Red Cross across the street from the old studio in Rancocas. And I had heard about it. And so I walked over and I walked in, and at the time, my sizes have varied over the years. So it was at a larger size, and I walked in and I said, "Is this something someone like me can do?" You know, what is this thing? And he was just so sweet, as I'm sure you all know. And he said, "Of course you can. Everybody can do this." And told me the class I should come to. He's just so quiet and unassuming and went to the first class and, you know, we're doing stuff and it's like, that's the first move. And I went, I just did 20 things. I'm telling you, that's not one move. What are you talking about? And I never aspired to be a master. I never aspired to be in gym, like in classes under also. But somehow he just kept me always wanting to do better and always wanting to find that aha moment. And it got me through a divorce. It got me through the health issues. It taught me my own healing energy. And he was just inspiring. And I never felt the pressure to be perfect. I never felt like it was bad that I'd been gone for 6 months and when I came back, I felt like a newborn giraffe again. And he would say, I did so well and it's wonderful. And I felt like I wasn't, but he'd get me back in form within a few weeks. And it's interesting when hearing your story about him going to the park and people seeing him, because it triggered a memory in me. Him saying to us in one of our classes, we were talking about feeling like maybe we weren't quite as good as we could. And he said, you could go to a park and people would follow you. And I remember him saying, I don't know if I'm sure you were there. I don't. So he made you feel good, even if you weren't that intense student. And you learned a lot, learned that balance in life and about energy, and we'll forever be grateful that he was a part of my life. So thank you for his
I was like 2 months ago. I have to say, as went to your point, I was one of the students who challenged us to take all that. I'm not very smart. I didn't challenge them in a way other than I said, you're strong, you're this. I said, hit my arm. Okay. And he said, yeah, I hit your arm. Yeah. So he said, okay, you'll put your arm out, I'll give you 10%. Well, it's not like 10% of $1 million came down on my arm. Oh, all right, Mr. Ting, that was pretty dang good, man. And so I did think about that longer, did class, and definitely thinking about it. Go home later, and I was practicing, and I turned my arm like this. And I was like, oh my God. I looked at my arm, no bruise. This is what Master Ting did. For 2 weeks, I turned my arm, and I felt inside my arm for 2 weeks. Okay. And then another funny story was one early class, and another student was with me, and we were in the class, and there was only a couple of us. And he brought out the boards, the breaking boards. And so he puts the chair over and he puts the boards down. Okay, Don, you come, you break the board. I said, I never broke the board. And I said, then, Don, you break the board. He said, hit it. So I hit it, and it breaks, and it goes, now you go home and tell you what you can break a board. Let's do Tai Chi. Tai Chi starts great. Now that's everything.
Hello, what I've been thinking about is when I first met Master Ting. There was an elder hostel up in Shawnee by where I live. Well, they were doing an elder hostel workshop. And I got a call from them because Tai Chi and Qigong was going to be a part of it. And I had been teaching just a little bit. And they said, oh, we have somebody to do it, but we don't think he can come, and would you be available? And we go back and forth, and finally he says, oh, it's okay, he's coming, he can do it. So great, well, who is it? He said, oh, it's William Ting. And at the time, they had a Tai Chi festival in East Stroudsburg University. So I had read all the bios, and I said, well, can I come? He said, no, because at the time, I didn't qualify for no. Today, no problem. But I talked my way in Livingston.
Yeah.
And I went there. And all I did was see him. And I saw something different. From I, you know, I had been around and had been to some teachers, and there was just something about the way he stood. It was a presence, whatever you want to call it. And so we went through the workshop, and then I asked him, I said, can I see you for a private lesson? And he says, yeah, sure. So we go for the private lesson, and he asked me, he says, well, how can I help you? What do you want to talk about? And I had no idea how it could help me or what I wanted to talk about. But there was maybe a little divine intervention. I said, well, how about posture? And for all of us Ting students, you know, if it was about anything, it was about posture. But what I was also thinking of was the man. Because I had met other people in Tai Chi and had some other teachers and some people that had skills and things like that. But I never met someone that I would ever want to emulate or, you know, want to be like this person. You know, and what else convinced me is I saw that quality in him. And then shortly thereafter, I saw it in him. And I said, oh, not only does Mr. Ting have it, he can teach it. And if he can teach him, yeah. Teach me. You know, and over the years, I was thinking of it, of the, you know, however many hundreds of times I saw him, at least 90% of the time, before I go, he said, say hello to your wife. You know what I mean? And just that kind of kindness in that example. And it, you know, it's very inspiring. It was very inspiring to hear you speak and to speak about carrying on the legacy. Thank you all.
Something follow up on what Richard said. I don't know about the rest of you, but I had a terrible time remembering people's names. And Master Ting would meet somebody, and 10 years later, he'd say, you know that guy that, oh yeah, that's more so-and-so. Well, how do you remember his name? You know, you remember people's names. It was just astounding. But the other thing was, yeah, exactly. Every time I would talk to him, when we get ready to hang up the phone, and say hello to your wife. Every time I leave the studio or from class, say hi to your wife. Yeah. It's like he was always thoughtful. It wasn't just Tai Chi, it was life. It was more than Tai Chi. So yeah, I just wanted to add that. Anybody? You want Barsha?
I talk a lot about Joe, because all of mentioned Joe. So I met Joe, not exactly where I met Joe, but I did. And also a woman named Angela, who's not here. And he said, my teacher had died. I started studying in 1971. Oh, sorry. I started in 1971. This was in the 80s. And he had passed away, and I was found, I didn't know what I was gonna do. And Joe said to me, you have to study Mexican. I said, we've been doing this for so long, how much different can it be? He said, you have to study. So you know, an hour, I don't like driving. It's an hour and a half sometimes to get to his house. And I was really, really reluctant until I had my whatever. But Joe was, they'll come to my house and live right in the next town. Every single week, he'd come over to my house for gratis and teach me. So I would have something to offer when I went to class, came to all the workshops. But
I will tell you, and, we really worked hard because for know that we studied different forms from different people. And we had to unlearn all of it. I think I could say, oh my, this is taking me so long to get anywhere. I could not believe it would take that long to do it. So, because by your muscle memory and everything after at least almost 20 years, it's really ingrained. And when I met him, they constantly encouraged me. And then I would, because of my health throughout all of the decade, wanted to even now, I would have to take a little break. And then I would start again. And always at a different level because it was always, I learned how to do it with my mind. But one of the things I tell everybody, I really, really want to thank the people who were there in Zoom. And because of COVID, we have a library that is so amazing. So I started to get enough energy back where I'm doing them now. And I thought, it's every day I watch a portion. I am learning. So those of you said he's still here. And I feel like he's really telling me because I really wanted it. Obviously, since 72 now, still pushing through. I really wanted it. And yet I was telling someone yesterday, there's so much I didn't know. You know, I didn't know too much about the applications. I do now, more than I ever thought I would because of the turn ons. The turning inside bones, for getting distracted, for watching the Zoom. I think how grateful we are to have as much library as we had, because you were right up there. So he would, and I will thank you for Liz. What he was doing is working so hard how to tell us, because every one of us doesn't get it. And then I started teaching. And I can't tell you, those that you were fabulous. I would come out, I would say, I think I'm going to play. He said, what? I must have told him, that's a good thing. I said, I had the nerve even told teach dogs thing, it was so hard. And the other day when I watched something and I realized, now I know why I said we all working for it. It was hard because of learning, unlearning was hard. That was a lot of us have studied long time ago. Very hard, and I was telling my son-in-law yesterday, you could not pay for the amount of feelings that you get in your body, that you feel in your body, things that you know most people don't. And that's the one that's important to us. That feeling is worth millions, and you have to put my work in and have to work. So, he would encourage me to come back. I would call him all the time. He said, you think you're gonna come back. In your age, you're the best possibility, again, always maybe not so true. But, I just can't imagine how at the end of my life, I'm still doing this. And, it's all good. Thank you. Yeah.
Anyone else? Anybody else? Okay, then let's enjoy ourselves.